Hello, and welcome to Maranatha Mission Stories. If you've heard the name Maranatha before, the fact that we build churches, schools, and water wells may sound familiar. You may have also heard about our volunteer trips, or that we are somehow connected with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We live in a world where information is plentiful, whether true, kind of true, or simply inaccurate. So today, we're addressing myths and misconceptions about Maranatha. Do you have any question marks about Maranatha's work? Join us as we lift the hood on the Maranatha machine and take a look at the way we run.
Is Maranatha a Seventh-day Adventist Church entity?
Let me think about this.
Oh, wow, stuff I didn't study for.
Okay, well, entity.
To be truthful, I don't really know.
I'm gonna go with yes. I think it is. It's a church entity.
I don't know. I'd say yes, affiliated.
I don't think so. I think that it's its own entity, but I don't think it's governed or directed by the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
I think that Maranatha is a Seventh-day Adventist Church entity.
My name is Don Noble. I've had the privilege of being involved here at Maranatha for over 43 years. People have a lot of questions about Maranatha, especially if they're at distance from the organization. They don't really know who we are, what drives us, that type of thing. And so it's understandable that they'd have questions. I think it would be very easy for someone to assume that we were part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church specifically. We built churches for them, schools, we drill water wells, and guess what? We give all those projects to the church and they become the owner. So you're looking in from the outside, why wouldn't you think that we were part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church? But in terms of structure, we aren't.
Even though Maranatha is not a legal part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, that very, very close relationship and communication with the church heavily influences what Maranatha does, the priorities we take, and how we work in the different parts of the world. As an organization, we have employees that are Seventh-day Adventists. A great, large majority of the people that participate in projects are Seventh-day Adventists. And then the other big one is a lot of the projects we do, in fact, most of them are for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So that's how it's very easy to have a little bit of that misunderstanding.
Well, we're a 501c3, tax-exempt organization, and we have a board of directors. And that board of directors is the final authority for this organization. Legally, we're a self-perpetuating board. The board votes itself. Boards we bring new members on. And how do we do that? What's the most important criteria, if you will? It's really come down to this, and it's pretty simple. If we're going to be committed to the growth of the gospel in the world, we want people that have internalized that thought process completely.
The board at this point tends to meet 3 times a year. And the types of decisions range from planning to specific discussions as to how do we solve problems, to finances, to what efforts the organization should be involved in marketing, what strategic efforts should we do for volunteers, how do we best serve, the mission of the organization. The skill of our board is broad and deep. We have architects, we have engineers, we have people that have been developers and builders. There's physicians on the board. There's people that have a background in the legal profession. So it's a board that is very, very strong just from the outside qualifications. But the most important criteria remains: how are they willing to function and to trust God, because this is a faith ministry.
Stay tuned. We're unraveling more Maranatha myths when we come back.
Does Maranatha initiate where to work?
I don't think it does.
Probably not their own things. They probably get to request of where to go.
I think that the initial request comes from a conference or a certain part of the world.
I would think so, but I guess at the same time too, possibly no.
Yes, I think that's pretty true, that I think Maranatha initiates where to work.
It has to study where it does, but it doesn't initiate it.
I guess yes and no.
I would say I'm gonna go with yes.
No. I don't believe that Maranatha does initiate where to work.
Actually, no. I'm changing my answer. No. I'm going with no.
My name is Kyle Feast, and I'm the Vice President of Projects here at Maranatha Volunteers International. I get to work with our teams of construction people and project coordinators all around the world. We were working in 8 or 9 countries right now, and each country has a team that works there, a country director. So I support them, help help to provide interaction with architects and engineers, and just in a general way, help to coordinate all of the construction and project management that happens for Maranatha. One of the questions that I get asked quite a bit is, how does Maranatha choose where you work? Clearly there's been choices made about we're going to work in this country or that country. And the answer is that Maranatha listens to the needs of the World Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We work very, very closely with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We don't do any projects, or hardly any projects, that they don't specifically request us to do. We don't make up the projects. We go to them and say, what do you need? How can we help? And that's what we do.
I think that the model of listening to the priorities of the church leadership is important because they know their territories and they know what their priorities are, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish. When we get a request from them, we sit down and learn about the needs, and we take a look at, is that a good fit for Maranatha? We don't always say yes to every request. We have to look at, is it a good place for volunteers? Is it a good place that donors will want to support? Is it safe? Is it a place where the costs are somewhat reasonable? So there's usually about a year of preparation before we actually bring volunteers when we get involved in a country.
Sometimes people assume that Maranatha does disaster response. And I think that happens is because Maranatha's work involves the building or rebuilding of structures in areas that are high need. There's a number of major prominent Seventh-day Adventist organizations like ADRA that gets involved in disaster reliefs. Here in the United States, the other organization is called Adventist Community Services, and they're more of a first responder to the types of things that are required right after a disaster. But often our work comes after they have jumped in and fixed some of the major issues.
A disaster is something that happens immediately and then you have to respond immediately. And so disaster response organizations are really built around quick mobilization and having people in different parts of the world ready to go at a moment's notice and things like that. When we organize volunteers, we could be planning 6, 8, 10 months out. So it's a completely different set of criteria.
Which requests do we respond to? That's probably the number one question that I received in my tenure here at Maranatha. People don't realize the thousands and thousands of needs for simple structures all over the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's really phenomenal.
Here in our office, we have requests totaling over 100,000 buildings. So in terms of need, it's almost infinite. So how do you choose the right one? Which is the one that is more valuable will have higher impact than another? Well, that's very difficult to know.
As Maranatha employees, we pray fairly frequently here, and we do it several different ways, several different times throughout the week. In many of our meetings, we begin the meeting with prayer, and we're not just going through the motions, but we're asking God to lead us and to guide us and to give us wisdom for the particular things we're going to be talking about that day.
It's always hard to choose. There's nothing I hate more than to have to say no on a project. And I've come to the point where I don't usually say no. Usually say, well, wait, we'll see what happens. Pray, maybe God will open the way. I mean, I don't know. It's possible that will happen. The flip side to it is when you're able to say yes. And you go in and you build, and volunteers get involved. The church changes and grows. People come to the Lord. Children running up and down in the school classrooms. How exciting is that? You know, and we get to see that quite a bit. So there's definitely a positive side. I have ceased to worry too much about the decision as it gets made. I trust that if our board makes a decision after praying about it, that God's going to make himself responsible for the outcome of that. If I didn't believe that, I couldn't do this job.
Does Maranatha work only internationally?
Let me think about this.
I've seen projects, local projects within the States, or even really close by.
I have to stop right there. I have a question about that one.
I think they do work here, internationally, within this country.
No.
I've actually been on a project in North America, so I know that this is a no.
No, I don't believe so.
I think that's no.
My name is Lisandro Winkler-Stout, and I'm the Vice President for Volunteer Services. We organize all aspects of our mission trips and volunteer projects for individuals or groups. Last year, for instance, we completed around 60 projects. And for all those projects, we need to identify the location where it's happening, lodging for those volunteers, transportation. We need to identify how the food is going to be provided, the water, but also planning their experience, their volunteer experience in a way that they have an enjoyable and meaningful experience in the field. I would say most of the stories that we see, even here, Maranatha Mission stories, are about things that happen internationally, right? Overseas. So that may lead people to think that Maranatha is only active outside the United States. But the reality is that for 2025, for instance, 1/3 of our projects and 1/3 of our volunteers for the whole year actually served here in the United States. So that's a completely different picture that some people may have about Maranatha. So many organizations here in North America, either schools, camps, either churches, they have needs related to construction, but they don't have the resources to take care of that, right? So they come to an organization like Maranatha asking for help. And what Maranatha provides is volunteers that bring skilled labor to offer them the opportunity to accomplish their goals. We can be part of a team that's painting or replacing, the flooring, or doing landscaping for the organization that's receiving us. There are many things that you can do. And then I think the main reason why volunteer projects in North America are unique is the community, the sense of community that we have. People come, they stay, and they continue to come to Maranatha projects because they find community. They find people with the same purposes. Sometimes they find people with the same needs. That's one key component why it's unique.
3 myths down, 2 more to go, and one that's at the very heart of our mission when we come back.
Does Maranatha receive funding from government sources?
Does Maranatha receive funding from government sources?
How should I think about this?
I really don't know.
No, it does not.
I would think no, because it's a lot of donations, time, and things like that.
Think they don't. So I'm gonna go with no.
No, I don't believe they get any government funding.
But I don't think it gets funding from federal, so from government sources.
My name is Karen Godfrey. I'm the Vice President for Advancement at Maranatha, and I started working here in January of 1989.
So how many years is that?
That is 37 years. The Advancement Department is the place that receives all of the donations for Maranatha. The mail gets opened, all of the checks get receipted, then the tax letters get sent out, and all the responses, like the receipt letters and the thank you notes that are written, all of that comes out of the Advancement Department. Over the years, Maranatha has entertained the idea of submitting grant applications to the United States government, primarily USAID. And on a couple of occasions we have. The organizations that generally are recipients of government grants are those that are a little less religious than what Maranatha is. So Maranatha is not receiving money from the government, and we do not get tithe dollars from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Therefore, we rely on individual donors. Some foundations, but mostly it's individual donors. When somebody calls our office and wants to know what they should give to, one of the first things I do is try to find out what they're passionate about. Are they passionate about people sitting in a church? Are they passionate about people being able to get water? Are they passionate about having kids go to school?
We rely entirely on donations from individuals, private donations, big donations, small donations. It all goes towards making the mission happen. We couldn't do it without it. The marketing department is in charge of sharing, communicating the stories and the mission of Maranatha. So we're telling about the communities in need, the specific need, the volunteers who help fulfill that need, the donor stories, and we're doing all of this because we need to inspire more people to give back to Maranatha, to contribute, to give donations, because that's how we operate. Typically, a marketing department is working really hard to sell a product. That's not really what we're doing here in our department. We're not trying to sell anything. What we're trying to do is tell the stories that will authentically inspire you to feel called to get involved, to feel called to volunteer, to be called to give, to feel called to just do something to get closer to God.
As far as people donating to Maranatha, I think probably the main reason is that they've personally seen the effect, the impact. Maybe it's in their own life. A lot of times it's in their own life. And if there's been a positive impact for them, they say, I want to see more of this. And if I donate, more of that will happen.
Amen.
Does Maranatha organize evangelism efforts?
Does Maranatha organize evangelism efforts?
Does Maranatha organize evangelism efforts? Let me think.
I don't know.
I don't think it does evangelism in its truest sense, with the pastor going there and, want to baptize people.
It does.
Do they? I'm trying to think hard about this. Evangelism.
No, I don't think they organize any evangelism efforts.
They are more project driven.
I'm not sure he does that directly. I don't think so.
I'm going to say yes.
I would say maybe, yeah.
Traditional evangelism, probably in the Adventist church and maybe outside the Adventist church, is somebody standing up and preaching, and maybe a specific series of meetings. That would That would be the traditional understanding of evangelism. And it's not a bad one, because I think that's true. But there's other ways to bring people to Jesus than just those meetings.
The whole idea of evangelism is about bringing good news, or the gospel, and that is right in the mission statement of Maranatha.
Then when you compare, what we do with traditional evangelism, what we do is basically to open the door for the gospel. What we are offering that local church is the opportunity for them to speak to more people.
Having a dedicated place of worship is important. We see it in the Bible. God provided a tabernacle for the children of Israel. He provided a temple later on. And as we provided houses of worship for congregations, we've seen over and over and over again how that can facilitate the growth of the church. So it's the people that are doing it. It's the members that are going out and reaching their neighbors and their friends. But the building is the place where it can happen, where people can come together and meet and worship God together. And so it's a critical part of the process.
So when we leave the comfort of our home, and in many cases, if you go to international projects, you leave behind your language, your country, and you silence the noise that you have around, and you go to serve where Jesus is working, there's no better way to be closer to Christ.
We hear many times from donors that they are so blessed because they have been a blessing to others.
Our goal isn't just to brag about any of the work that we're doing. It's not just this list. It's really about inspiring people to grow closer to Christ.
Initially, before even coming to Maranatha, I would have been one of the people that was skeptical about the organization, that probably would believe some of the myths. What is Maranatha? Why do they do what they do? And so on. As a highly educated person, it's easy to go down that path. But once you see God working actively, both in my life and in the life of tens of thousands of other people, you're like, wow, there's something here.
I've asked myself many times, if I had to do it over again, 37 years ago, would I have started this journey with Maranatha? The answer is always a resounding yes. It has been such a huge blessing for me.
Working for Maranatha has shaped my theology because I have seen, or I have come to understand the things that I can do for the kingdom instead of the things that I should not do in order to be saved.
I've seen God work in ways that you can't describe by any other word than a miracle. And so as you see that happen over and over again, it can't help but touch your heart.
I've seen people overseas in these little congregations where they may not have a pastor, or they may not see that pastor for months at a time, but they're not letting that stop them from having a vibrant faith community, from doing outreach. And that has inspired me to not just be a spectator in my community, that I can actually do something. If I want to see a change, if I want to see something grow, I can take initiative to be part of that.
You ask how working here has impacted my life. Well, it's been so long I can hardly remember when I wasn't involved here, but God constantly reminds me of His care for me personally. It's not just a job. If it was just a job, I'd go do something else. I don't have to do this, but I think God gave me the privilege of doing it, and He keeps changing me as I allow Him to, day by day. You can spend your life doing a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, some call it the rocking chair test, where you look back on your life and you say, what did I do? What impact did I really make with my life? Did I change other people? What meaning did I bring to other people? And I think that's why God gave me the privilege of doing this, and I'm grateful for it every day.
We're glad you joined us on our quest to unravel some common misconceptions about Maranatha. If you still have questions about the what, how, and why of our work, let us know. Give us an email or call our office. We can't wait to hear from you. And in the meantime, thanks for joining us on Maranatha Mission Stories.